Okay, hi everybody. We're gonna just wait till we get all the other ladies on the share. So give me another second. Mhm. 1 second. Get safer. 1 second. Mhm.
Recording stopped. She's not talking.
Okay,
But
now I'm
she is.
talking.
Yes.
Okay. 1 second. Have to get all the paraphernalia, all the wires, and all of the. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you all? How's everybody on YouTube? How's everybody on Zoom? How's everybody in the world? Bezrat Hashem. Today is 24 days in the Omer. Yeah?
Recording in progress.
Okay. Good. Great. Today is 24 days in the Omer, which is, we finished 3 weeks, and now we're 3 days into the Omer. When I see myself on the camera, everything is backwards. 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 and 3. Somebody told me the other day it was 5, 5, 25, something like that, the English dates, which we don't really pay so much attention to. Okay, so we're in the week of Netzach. We're in the week of Netzach, which is why I'm wearing pink. It's not always a color that I wear, but this is a pink thing, light pink. Tomorrow, next week is also dark pink. And the energy of that's the color of Netzach. Netzach is light pink, and Hod is dark pink. And today's Tiferes of Netzach, right? It's the week of Netzach where we are where we're thinking about Nitzchius. We're thinking about that which is eternal, Lanetzach. We're trying to do things in our life that will access eternity and that will create for us an eternity, that will create for us Olam Haba, and that will make this world the way Hashem wanted it to be. That's called Netzach. We're also trying to overcome and overpower our to make our good inclination overpower the opposite of the negative inclination. That's Linatseach. And we're also praying for success for our children, our grandchildren, ourselves. That's Netzach. All of that is Netzach. And today we're going to use the tool called Tiferet. So Tiferet of Netzach is to try to see, to try to overpower any negative inclination that we might have, and Linatseach, to be victorious by remembering the compassion and the rachamim that Hashem has, because Tiferet is compassion and rachamim. So to try to remember the compassion and the rachamim that God has on us, and that will help us to Linatseach, to be victorious, to be successful, to overpower any pull and drive that a person might have to do something that will hurt their nitzias, that will hurt their eternity. Also, Netzach, the whole week of Netzach is the week of thinking about our children, because our children are our continuation, our continuity. So praying a lot for children this week. And also recognizing something really interesting, and that is that whenever you teach someone Torah, you're actually giving them eternity. So you're the parent, so to speak, or the, I don't know how you call it, progenitor, that which gives life force to your students. So how interesting is that? That when we teach someone, we give them Netzach, and we give them access to Netzach Yisrael, to Hashem, who's called Netzach Yisrael. Also, we want to try to think today, how can I use the tool of Tiferet? How can I lead Pa'er? How can I praise Hashem? Because the word Tiferet, as all of these Sfirot, all the words of the Sfirot are so complex. They're so multifaceted. They're so deep. And so I just use the simplest adjectives that connect to the character traits that a Jew is supposed to have when they're working on their midot, when they're working on their character traits. How come that happens? I don't know why that happens. My phone is so funny. I'm trying to adjust it and it's not letting me. Okay. So Lihit Pa'er means to praise, to give Hashem Tiferet, to give Hashem praise. And so what can I do today to give Hashem praise forever? So I'm going to tell you a story that just happened this morning. And I like to tell you stories that I hear firsthand. So let's say I wasn't there, but I heard it firsthand from someone who was there. So what's that called? Secondhand? Klisheni? Am I klisheni now? So somebody came to a big tzaddik, to the Rav, to the tzaddik Yenuka for a bracha this morning, just a few hours ago. And he had a big problem and all kinds of issues, and he came for a bracha. And the Rav gave him advice. He gave him what to do. He told him what he should do. And the boy walked out, and then he came back in again, and he came back out again, came back in again. That was, to get clarity on what to do. And every time he came back in, the Rav was there, gave him a lot of attention. And there's a lot of people there. It became already, because the Rav is already revealing his greatness, so he became very popular. And people every day, there's more and more people that come to daven with him by the nates, by the sunrise service, and then they stay afterwards. And so when the third time the man came back, he came back not to ask for clarity, but he came back to do the following. He's a man, an Israeli, but he wears earrings. He wears an earring and whatever. I guess as a symbol. I'm not quite sure what the kavana is when a man puts on an earring. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to convey. Maybe he just likes the jewelry aspect of it, whatever. But it's a certain level of, in yeshiva, in kollel, they don't wear earrings, the men, I don't think, right? So the man came to the third time back to the rabbi. He took out his earring and he gave it to the rabbi. He said, this is a symbol of my doing tshuva. I'm now a Baal tshuva. Like, whoa. He said, I'm going to give you this earring, and I want you to kashet. I want you to use it to decorate your Sefer Torah. I guess it was a diamond earring or something valuable. And he put it on the Sefer Torah. Now, the Rav does that. That's what he does with men who come with earrings. That's what he does. He puts it on the Sefer Torah. I mean, if it's one of these, like, I don't know, whatever, all the earrings he puts on the Sefer Torah as if like it's like Truma, Titzav. It's a contribution to the beauty of the Sefer Torah. The Rav himself, his own personal Sefer Torah, which he has, it's tiny. It's encrusted with, the outside of it is encrusted with diamonds. He spent a fortune on making the Sefer Torah because he wanted to show people that money is only to do things like buying a Sefer Torah, mehudar, buying, he has huge mezuzahs, He said, I spent a lot of money on my divrei kedusha, on my holy objects, because that's what money is for. Money is not for anything else. And he also said, jewelry, diamonds and jewels and gold and silver, it's not for jewelry, and it's not for women lakashet etzlam, to adorn ourselves. It's for beautifying holy places, shuls, Beit Knesset, Sefer Torah, Aron Kodesh. Anyway, he took this man's earring. He put it on his Sefer Torah. I didn't see. I wasn't there, so I didn't see how he did that. And then he asked the man for a bracha. He said, "This is an open miracle." He said about himself. People are saying about the Rav that he does miracles, but you, he said to this Baal Shuvu that had just removed his earring, you are the open miracle. You're a mofet. You're a miracle, and I want you to give me a bracha. And the man was like, "What?" And he said, "I don't know how to give a bracha." So the Rav said, "I'll tell you the words and just repeat after me." Mishabeach Avotenu Avram Yisrael. And he said the whole Mishabeach. And the Rav said, make a Mishabeach for all of Klal Yisrael. And then when he finished that, he said, and if you want to give me personally a bracha, give me a bracha that I should only hear Besarot Tovot from all of Klal Yisrael. That's the bracha that he wanted. So that's called giving honor to God. God is Netzach, and Tiferet is honor and beauty. There's an illustration of how a person took his own, the Rav, who took his own situation. He happened to be in, and gave it all back to Hashem. It's all for Hashem. He keeps saying everything is for Hashem. Kavod. He says, kavod. When a person wants kavod and honor. Now listen, all of us like kavod and honor. That's just the reality of it. We all like to be paid attention to. We all like to be acknowledged. We like to be thanked. We like to be, pushed up a little bit and, given a little bit of, a little bit of malchus, a little bit of royalty and dignity. We all like that. We're human. You know what part of us likes that? The ego. And the ego is the part of us that gets us always in trouble. And so the Rav keeps saying, kavod was created for us to give kavod to Hashem. And that's it. That's why kavod, and to our parents, because it says kaber tavicha, and to our rabbanim. But for ourselves, no way. You're supposed to take kavod for yourself. Beauty to beautify Hashem. Everything. That's his mindset. That's how he teaches. Okay, that's the energy, a little bit of the energy of today. Of Tiferet of Netzach. And then let's learn a little bit from the Parsha. It's a giant Parsha, Acharei and Kedoshim, 2 Parshas. Last week was Tazria Metzora, because this year was not a leap year, so we have to get all the Parshias in by Sukkot. So we have these double Parshas. So this last week was Tazria Metzora. This week, Acharei Kedoshim. Acharei Mos Kedoshim Emor. Not Emor. Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. Acharei Mos is the whole beginning of the Parsha. It's the whole Parsha now. Acharei Mos and Kedoshim is all talking about Divrei Kedusha. It's talking about the words, things of holiness. For example, the whole beginning of Parshas Acharei Mos is talking about Yom Kippur. The entire service of Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol, and his entering into the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur. That's what the Parsha is about. And it talks about, because what happened? Last week's Parsha, or in Parsha Shmini, the sons of Aharon came into the Kodesh HaKadoshim unbidden. They didn't have permission to come, and it wasn't allowed, and they died. And so we have that was the whole Parsha Shmini about Nadav and Avihu, and how Moshe Rabbeinu consoled Aaron and said, I knew that the Mishkan would be consecrated through great people, and I thought it was going to be us. Now I see your sons were greater than us, which was really, when I think about how Moshe Rabbeinu was able to comfort his brother on the loss of his oldest sons in such a shocking way, that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to do that, and how we always have to try to help. We always have to try to comfort and to try to find a way that will bring nechama, that will bring consolation and relief to people who are suffering. So this parsha is talking about Yom Kippur. And we know the teaching. The teaching is that the energy of the parsha is in the energy of the world. So what's happening in the parsha is happening now in current events, in our own private life. It means, in other words, this whole week was a week of Yom Kippur for us. And it's continuing to be, because it's only Wednesday. It's continuing to be a Yom Kippur for us, meaning we have to do tshuva this week, major tshuva. Everybody, it's a hard thing to say, and I want to tell you something. For years and years and years, I hated when people would say things like "do tshuva, do tshuva." How much can you say that already? We're good. We keep Torah. We keep mitzvahs. We're doing everything right. What do you want from us? But the truth is that there's always more. There's always more coming close to Hashem. There's always more. There's always more time that we can utilize in our day instead of wasting it on silly things. There's always more ahavat Yisrael that we can have, ahavat chinam. There's always more that we can forgive people. It's infinite. Our souls are infinite. Everyone has an infinite soul. Human beings have an infinite soul, and therefore there's infinite levels of greatness that we can come to. And so doing tshuva means getting to the next level of where you're supposed to be. What have you accomplished? Go higher. There was a pasuk, I want to find it. I wasn't using this chumash this morning. I was using another chumash. It's in the other room, and I found such a beautiful pasuk that I just want to read it to you here. It's such a beautiful pasuk because everybody has a different way of looking at the level of Klal Yisrael right now, but we really need spiritual help from Hashem. We need spirit. We really need help. And so listen to this. In the pasuk it says, it's in Perek Tezayin in Vayikra, and it's pasuk also Tezayin. Look at that, Tezayin. Okay, 16. Chapter 16, verse 16 in the book of Vayikra, the third book of the Torah. It says like this: V'chiper al hakodesh mitzumot b'nei Yisrael. And Hashem is going to bring kapara. Kapara is an interesting word. It means atonement, and that's why Kippur, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. If you look at the old Machzorim, it calls the Yom Kippur Day of Atonement, right? And we tell each other kapara. If you love somebody, you say kapara. It's a nice thing. It means Hashem should love. I love you. That's what it means. But it's the opposite. Meaning, if you have a very beautiful child, you say to them, "Oh, you're so ugly," but you say it because you mean that they're so beautiful. Sometimes we do that. We say the opposite word. So, kapara means you should be an atonement for me. It means you're such a hard person in my life that dealing with you should erase all of my sins. But it's the opposite of that. It means the opposite. It means you're such a blessing in my life that you're just the greatest pleasure for me. So v'chiper la kodesh. So in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Kodesh means the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash. In the Kodesh, the Kohen Gadol, is going to bring atonement for Bnei Yisrael, from the Jewish people, mipish'ehem, l'chol chatzotam, from all of our crimes, pesha is a crime, and chet is mistakes. V'chein ya'aseh le'ol moed, hashochen itam, b'toch tumotam. And so you're going to do that for the Ohel Moed. That's the tent of the Mishkan. And this is the part that I love so much. Hashochenitam b'toch tumotam. That's dwelling with you, even in your tumah. So Rashi right away says, what does that mean? It means, see, I used a different chumash this morning here. Afal pi shehem tmeim shchina beinehem. Even though, this is the Gemara in Yuma, even though we're a mess, even though we're not what we're supposed to be, we're not on the level that we're supposed to be, and we haven't done a complete tshuva, and we still have a long way to go, and Mashiach is going to help us with that. Even though, Afal Pichein, Hashem is with us in our tumah, within our tumah, He's here with us. The Shachanti betocham, right? V'asuli mikdash, the Shachanti betocham. Make me a Beis Hamikdash so that I can dwell within them. Chazal say, even if we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, an operational Beis Hamikdash, Hashem is inside of us. We just have to let Him stay there comfortably. We shouldn't kick Him out, or we shouldn't block Him. So the concept the concept is Hashem wants us to remember that even though we make mistakes, He gives us another chance and another chance and infinite chances, and He keeps enlivening us. Ad kedei kach, to the point where Hashem is even enlivening us while we're doing that mistake. He's giving us the life force. This is what the tzaddikim, they like to point this out, that it's like you're giving your kid like a hammer to construct a house, and you're giving the kid the hammer, and with that hammer, he's beating you on the head. That's crazy. Oops, sorry, I pushed the wrong button. It's a crazy thing that you might have, you're supplying Hashem is supplying us the energy with which we live. So if we're using the energy in a holy way, then that's great. If we're using energy in the opposite, then how crazy is that? That God is giving us life force and we're using it the opposite. Oh, someone's by the hotel now. That's cute. Who's RK? Okay, so that's the beginning of the Parsha. Achrei Mos is the beginning of his Yom Kippur. That means this is a whole week of Yom Kippur. And it's a whole week of Kapara, and it's a whole week of Hashem showing us what we need to fix. And then we have a whole week of fixing it, and a whole week of feeling Hashem's closeness, because on Yom Kippur, Hashem was the closest to us. And remembering that on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol would go from wearing the fancy clothing to the simple clothing. Right? On Yom Kippur, he kept changing the big day kahuna. Sometimes he would wear the big day zahav, the golden clothing. Now that doesn't mean they were all gold. It means that was the regular eight garments of the Kohen Gadol, which included the outer garments, which were embroidered with zahav. They had threads of gold embroidered in the choshen and in the all of the begadim of the Kohen Gadol, and then of the high priest. And then he would switch to simple linen, the simple clothing of a regular Kohen, just simple white. Then he would switch back and he would put on the ornamental clothing. Then he would switch back, and every time he switched clothing, he would go into the mikveh. It was a whole day. The whole service of Yom Kippur took an entire day. And we observed it, we watched it, we participated by the prayers. And at the end of the day, everybody was clean as a whistle. Everybody's soul was clean and felt good and felt wonderful. So by Shabbos, because we're in the Parsha now, we're in the Parsha's Acharei Mos. So by Shabbos, when the Parsha is over, we're going to all be clean and cleansed and beautiful. That's the beginning of the Parsha. And then towards the end of the Parsha talks about the Kriyas HaTorah that we read on Mincha of Yom Kippur, right? All the arayos, all the inappropriate, improper, and forbidden marriages and relationships. We read that at the whole end of the Parsha. We read that Mincha of Yom Kippur to remind us that all of us are human, and even on Mincha of Yom Kippur, we have to remember that the most lowest kind of behavior, we have to always be on guard. Don't think that we're so great that we're not tempted. Everybody's tempted. Till the last moment of their life, they're tempted. At the end of your life, remember that what the Baal Shem Tov said at the end of his life. He said, I don't want to be tempted by kavod, by glory and honor, because you know how it is. If a person, lo aleinu, I hope none of us have to die. I hope Mashiach comes and we live forever. Amen, 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 forever. So, but in the old days when people used to die, so on their deathbed, there was like a scene, like, how does he leave the world? How does he leave the world? So Baal Shem Tov said, on his deathbed, he said, the Yetzer Hara is so annoying, and it's with you till the last breath, that it's saying to me, on your deathbed, you're going to say Shema, and everybody's going to listen to you and see, wow, how you're leaving this world. And be'echad, when you say the word echad, your soul will go out. The Baal Shem Tov said, you see how stupid the Yetzer Hara, how ridiculous the Yetzer Hara is? On the deathbed, it's still trying to tell you, you want to look good for the newspapers when they talk about it's ridiculous. So that's why one of the many, many reasons why we read the arayos, we read the forbidden relationships on Yom Kippur at Mincha, when it's almost the height of Yom Kippur, almost the peak of Yom Kippur. We read about that to remember. You got to be careful with all the Yetzer Haras, not just that. But the Chumash says very specifically something that's very important for us to remember. And it's hard because now it's hard for us. You'll see in a second why. The Torah says at the end of the Parsha's it says that don't do any of these abominations, because that's why the nations before you, the nations who lived in Israel before you, they did all these abominations. They did all of these horrible, inappropriate behavior, and that's why they got kicked out. Now they could have stayed here with us had they chosen to become moral. They could have stayed and become a ger tosham. They could have become a citizen of Israel, with the laws of Israel, observing the laws of a ger toshav, right? Which it talks about that they also, if you live here in Israel, you can't, even if you're non-Jewish, you don't eat blood. All the things that. But the Torah says that don't do immorality because the land will kick you out, because the land cannot tolerate immorality. And we're talking about now all kinds of immorality. So you might say, well, what's going on now? And that's why it's when we have these here in Israel, when they have those pride parades, those called the rainbow, what I don't know how to say it even. And it's such a devastation to the morality, or it's embarrassing to the land of Israel that people should, walk around parading their abominations and their, improper behavior. Improper behavior, none of us are tzaddikim, none of us are perfect, except for the tzaddikim who are perfect. But as a person that, let's say, for example, yesterday you said Lashon Hara about your friend. Are you going to make a parade now and have a sign that says, I say Lashon Hara? Why would you do that? Of course not. You would say, I'm not telling anybody, and I'm going to do tshuva for it. So if a person does something wrong, they're not going to have a parade with a sign that says, I do. Anyway, so that's a problem here, because this government is not really a Jewish government. So we can take comfort a little bit in that, because it's not but it is, it's the government of the state of Israel. Israel is us. It's a big problem. Mashiach is going to come. Only Mashiach is going to come and solve these problems. The Shpola Zaidi said 200 years ago, a very interesting thing. The Shpola Zaidi lived at the same time as Rabbi Nachman from Breslov, and he very much opposed Rabbi Nachman from Breslov. Now, he himself was a Rebbe. He himself was a Chassidish Rebbe. It wasn't like he opposed the Derech of the Baal Shem Tov, but he opposed Rabbi Nachman personally. He caused Rabbi Nachman a lot of tsar, a lot of suffering. But Rabbi Nachman himself said it was good, because every tzaddik needs someone to oppose him, and that way the tzaddik is able to be protected from negativity and things like that. But the Shpola Zaidi said something that was, shocking. Now again, he said it 15 years ago. He said, he swears by his beard and payas. Now that's a big swearing for a Chassidish Rebbe. He swears on his beard and payas. He said to Hashem that the Jewish people will not be able to do teshuvah. So Hashem just might as well bring Mashiach already, because don't wait for us to do teshuvah. Don't wait for us till the last second, till the year 6000, because it's not going to happen. He swears on his beard and payas. So just bring the Google already. So it didn't help. It's still 200 and something years later, and here we still are. I guess Hashem disagreed with him and said, no. People like this young man this morning in the Yenuka's shul, who threw away his earring and said, I am now a Baal Tshuva. I guess Hashem said, you're wrong, Shpola Zaidi, and many of them will do tshuva. Okay, so Be'ezrat Hashem, we're waiting for good things, and so here in Eretz Yisrael, we feel like there's no way that the things that the government does that is Torah. Even though today, they sent around, I don't know, this is the first time I heard this, but if you listen to, how do you say, social media, then maybe you've heard this before. They sent around on the news channel that I listen to, the religious news channel that I listen to, called Alan Silver News. If you want his link, if you have, how you say, chat, WhatsApp. So They sent around a video, not a video, an audio of the Rosh Hashanah saying the tefillah for the soldiers, the Mishaberach. Now, I don't know if that was the Rosh Hashanah, Bibi, or if it was AI. You know, AI now can do that. You could, because the Rosh Hashanah, his voice is recordable, right? His voice is available for any AI to analyze. So they put his voice on, saying the Mishaberach for the Chayalim and for all Klal Yisrael. Okay, things like that could also happen because of what happened yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. Yesterday they announced, right, that they're going to destroy the airport in Yemen, and they gave them about an hour to evacuate, and the people who took them seriously ran out, exactly like Lahavdil, maybe, like when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell Paro, a warning for each of the makots, and then the Chumash says, those who listened and brought their, let's say the mak of Barak, when all the hail came down, Hashem said, take in all your animals, because whoever's in the field whichever animals are in the field are going to get destroyed, killed. So all the people who believed that took in their animals, and their animals were saved. So too yesterday, I guess Lahavdil infinite Abdallahs, because it wasn't Hashem saying it. It was the Israeli Air Force saying to the Yemenites, to the Houthim, or to the Taimanim, whoever is there, get out of the airport because we're destroying it. And they did, and they destroyed it. It's inoperable. And they also destroyed one of their ports, because the Taimanim, think about Taiman, think about Yemen, think about the Yemenites and the country of Yemen. It's, of all the Arab countries, probably one of the poorest in our region. People still go barefoot there. It's not a high economy at all, and it's not a high academic either. It's one of the it's coming, right? It has to come into the 21st century, but it's basically when the people when the Jews came from Yemen 77 years ago or 75 years ago, they had never seen a toilet, they had never seen electricity, they had in their houses, they had never seen running water. There was totally backwards. The first time I was in Ukraine, when I went to visit Rabbi Nachman, it was still under communist rule. I was very young and very stupid, meaning who goes to communist Russia to go? But I did, however it works. And I remember seeing in Ukraine, it was so poor. That part of Russia was so poor that everybody was walking around barefoot in Uman, and even in Kiev a little bit. And there was no running water. It was crazy how poor it was. And I remember, I lived in America then, I remember thinking, this is what America's afraid of. Russia is so behind and so poor. This is what we were having fire drills. Remember when you were a little kid, you had fire drills once a year against the Russians in case they bombed the world or whatever. So America's afraid of Russia. Look how behind Russia is. That's how Yemen was. And that's how parts of Yemen still are like that. But Iran is sending all these weapons with their own technicians to Yemen, because Yemen is strategic. It's closer. It's not that. It's a different angle. From Yemen, they can shoot rockets to Israel, which they've been doing for the whole time. And it's like Israel's been flicking them off, right? It's like a giant that has mosquitoes. Israel's like flicking off these rockets because they can only manage one a day. That's how long it takes them to load it, to get it, and whatever. So, but who would have thought? Hashem is making such a joke on us. Who would have thought that big Israel, right? The big David, what do they call us? That Israel would be annoyed and would be suffering from tiny country Yemen, tiny backward country Yemen, that is being emboldened and armed by Iran. So anyway, yesterday they took out the airport, and let's see if, every day we have to say, let's see what Hashem does now. Now India and Pakistan are fighting with each other. Why do countries do that? Why does one country threaten another country? India and Pakistan used to be one country. And then they was divided in half. Also, I think in the same time that Israel was created, and when the UN was dividing up the whole world and trying to make peace after World War II. So Pakistan was given to the Muslims, and India It was one big unit called India, I think. It was called, and then they broke off a section called Pakistan, and all the Muslims went to live in Pakistan, all the Hindus stayed in India. And they were supposed to be two different countries for two different races, religions, right? And they've been fighting ever since. Like, why? What is it with people? You know, they send pictures on this Alan Silver News. There was all these pictures of the airport and burning the Yemeni airport and the burning of the airport. And they also bombed some kind of a factory that manufactures some kind of something for a war. And they bombed the port where the ships come in, and I didn't take any pleasure in seeing these pictures. I'm just telling you the truth. Maybe my hashkaf is off, but I say, Hashem, you have such a beautiful world, and look, your people are just bombing the world. It's a beautiful world. Why do we have to bomb each other? Why do we have to fight each other? Why do we have to have such egos that we can't make peace with each other? Everybody just live in peace. Don't touch my stuff. I won't touch your stuff. Why is it that Ukraine and Russia, the whole world is crazy? Why? And it must give Hashem tsar. Of course, in Hashem's essence, there's none of this doesn't exist. But in the way that Hashem reveals how we're allowed to think about Him, right? There's Hashem in His essence, which no created being can ever comprehend and apprehend. But then there's how Hashem teaches us how to look at Him and how to relate to Him and to talk to Him and how to worship Him and serve Him. And so in that mindset of how a human being is allowed to think about Hashem, there's tsar. Doesn't Hashem have tsar that He gave a world and He gave humans, and all humans have a soul. Jewish people have a different type of a soul than a non-Jew, but all humans have a soul. Why in the world are they taking that soul and the powers of that soul and using it for destructiveness and for killing? It's so sad. Somebody sent me also a clip from Meaningful Minute, a very interesting clip. I was very proud of this man. It was probably like in Borough Park. It looked like in Borough Park. Borough Park is in Brooklyn, New York, for those Israelis who don't know what I'm talking about, and for those people who are listening on YouTube. It's a religious Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York. And it borders on, and it's in New York, so you have, it's not, there's no walls around Borough Park. Anybody can come in, anybody can. And so there was a black man who was following a Hasidic looking man. And he was yelling at him and he was screaming at him and he was saying, I'm going to tell you something that maybe you guys don't know, but the blacks are the original Jews. And he was very loud and very combative. And so this Jewish man, I really give him a lot of credit because somebody filmed this. I can't imagine if this was staged. If this was staged, I'll be very disappointed. But somebody filmed this, and the man said to this black man, he said, okay, if you're saying you're Jewish, and he showed him his tzitzis. He picked up, he's a Chassidish guy, so he's wearing his tzitzis, the beged over the shirt. He said, okay, so start wearing tzitzis. If you're a Jew, start wearing tzitzis. And start following the rules of the Bible. And the black man said again, the blacks are the original Jews. And the man said, okay. He said very calmly. He said, okay. So then, if that's what you're saying, if you're the original Jews, then pick up a Bible and start following all the directions in the Bible. And this man got so thrown off that he said, "What, you want to fight? You want to fight?" Like that. And then the clip stopped. So it was so interesting. Like, everybody has a soul, and why are you using your soul to fight? If that wasn't staged and that black man was really sincere, then he should have said to the man, the Hasidic man, really? There's rules to be Jews? Tell me some of them. I'm a Jew. Tell me what the rules are. In other words, everybody has a soul, and everybody should be using the soul to be making planet Earth into Garden of Eden, into Gan Eden. Instead, that job was given to the Jewish people. And so if you listen to, the teachings of the Ramchal says, what's the whole point of Judaism? The whole point of God giving us a Torah is because when Hashem made this world, His presence was visible, was palpable. Hashem's presence was in the world in such a strong way. And then as every generation did more and more sins, Hashem withdrew His presence, withdrew, and made the world more physical. And our job is to bring God's presence back into the planet, back into the world. And how do we do that? Through Torah and mitzvot. But the point of Torah and mitzvot is to bring God's presence back into the world. That's what the Ramchal says. The point of Torah and mitzvot is not just to get me and you a good place in Gan Eden, into Olam Haba, to make a beautiful Olam Haba. Olam Haba is this world. Olam Haba is going to be in this same world that we're in right now, but it's going to be a purified world, an elevated world, an ethereal world, and an eternal world. And our job in Torah and Mitzvah is to create that world. We're creating that world right now with Torah and Mitzvah. And how do we know? So Hashem gave us a Torah to teach us what is the mechanism by which we can purify this world. So when Avraham Avinu was alive, he didn't need all the mitzvah that we have now. Sorry, I'm yawning so much. Every time I get in front of these screens, these devices, it's just, I don't know if it makes me tired or saps me. I don't know, whatever. Excuse my yawning. Excuse my millions of fans on YouTube. Excuse my yawning. So Avraham Avinu, he was able to purify the world, and the world wasn't so far bad that he only needed the mitzvah in the way that he understood the mitzvah. Originally, there was only one mitzvah. Adam Harishon had that one mitzvah. Then he blew it. Then we got seven. Humanity got seven mitzvot, and then we blew that. And so Avraham Avinu got the tradition of 600, which eventually led to the revelation of the 613 mitzvot, which is what we have now. And each one of those mitzvot is the power to somehow lessen the coarseness of this world and elevate it. Now, we don't see that with our eyes because our eyes have not yet been given the correct glasses. You know that they have these 3D glasses, right? I'm sure you've all heard about these. 3D glasses means you put on the eye. Once when, I don't know, this was years and years and years ago, I once went to, when I went to Disney, years and years ago. So they had, I forgot what it was called. It was like a theater in the round. The whole theater was surrounding you. And you put on these glasses, and everything was 3D, meaning whatever they were filming, you felt it was literally in front of your face. It wasn't like on a screen flat. You felt the person, right? Like you jumped back when you saw this, It was unbelievable experience. And that was, this is talking about 30-something years ago. I imagine that whatever they have now in terms of changing visuals is much, much more advanced. But we don't have yet the glasses, the eyeglasses, or the visual capacity to see the percentage of holiness that we're having in this world. Like in every home that's listening to this year, the house, because we're learning Torah, the house is the coarseness and the harshness of negativity is disappearing, and the purity of it is elevating. We don't see it. Just like we don't see our souls we don't see our own souls. Just like we don't see the power of the smallest little act. Like I told you that story that the Rav said, the smallest, some people think that the biggest acts, you have to do splitting of the Red Sea, you have to do, bringing down the man, the walls of Jericho have to fall, like big things. The tzaddik says, no, Mashiach is going to come from somebody, a regular person doing a very small act that is above and beyond nature, and that's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back in a positive way. Okay. Now we come to Parshas Kedoshim. This is double Parsha, Parshas Kedoshim. Parshas Kedoshim is chock full of almost the most mitzvah of a Parsha. Every pasuk can be, you can write 20,000 books on every pasuk. In Parshas Kedoshim, it begins, Kedoshim Tiyu Ki Kadosh Ani. Hashem is right away, before he begins telling us all the rules, he says, listen, you might be overwhelmed by this, but I'm telling you right now, you can do everything. You can keep all of these rules. You can elevate yourself. You can become a super person. You have superpowers I'm not talking about Superman like you can see through walls and whatever Superman used to do, fly. And superpowers means the power of the soul. You have those powers. Why? Because you have a soul that is of me, says Hashem. Kedoshim to you, you could be completely elevated. Why? Because I'm elevated. Ki kadosh ani, says Hashem. I'm that. I am. That's me. And you are of me. But we forget that. We just totally forget that. You know, there are stories of tzaddikim. The Rebbe Rebbe Zatzal. He used to go and travel in Russia in the ice water hundreds of times a day. He was right. How did he do that? And he was doing it for people. He once said this when he was already in America. Somebody came to him for a Yeshua. Somebody came to him. He needed spiritual help, and the Rebbe, when he had a mikveh in his own house, and he traveled for him, I don't know, 100, 200, 310 times, something like that. So, how did he do things like that? How did tzaddikim do things like that? It's because nature listens to them. They don't even have to say anything. Nature listens to them. Since the beginning of the splitting of the Red Sea, nature listens to tzaddikim. That's why the sea split in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. The sea didn't want to split in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. The sea said, the Yam Suf said to Moshe Rabbeinu, I have a mandate from God that I have to keep flowing. I can't break that mandate. So what did God do? He removed the angel that was in charge of the sea, and Hashem himself became the in charge of the sea, and just parted, because Hashem listens to the tzaddikim. And so Kedoshim Tiyu Ki Kadosh Ani, you can be holy, because Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am Hashem, and I am in you. So you can be the greatest that you can be. Rabbi Nachman says it's not a sin like a real sin, but it's a terrible thing to get old. So his student said to him, what do you mean? He said, I don't mean genealogically in age, in years. I want you to be old, have many, many years. But don't get old in your service of God. Always stay like a child, excited, innovative, energetic. Stay young in your service of Hashem. Get old, live till 100, live till 1,000, live till 1,000,000. We don't know how the Mashiach is going to come. We don't know how that's going to shift our physicality. But don't get old. We can't get old. We have to always find something brand new. We have to find some new way of serving Hashem. Something exciting, something different. Lechadesh, something different. That's why people are always trying new recipes. They want new clothes. They want to read a new book. Why is that? What's the spiritual root of everything? Everything that happens in this world has a spiritual root. What's the spiritual root of wanting something new and not wanting same old? Some people same old. I remember when I tell the story a lot. When I was a teenager and I started cooking, helping my parents make Shabbos, I used to enjoy cooking. And I remember the first time I made broccoli kugel for Shabbos. And my father I wrote it to him, my father was horrified. He said, what is that? I said, I made kugel for Shabbos. He said, kugel is what kind of kugel is that? It's green. I said, it's broccoli kugel. He said, that's not Shabbos-ic. We don't eat that on Shabbos. I said, Daddy, come on. And he became, of course, more open to that. But it used to be the same old. You had the same food on Shabbos, and that was comforting for some people. And that was regulating for some people. But what is this idea that we have that we want to do something new? Because Hashem is saying to us, you have to try to think of new ways to serve me, new ways to inspire yourself. That's why, again, looking at bookstores, when I was a kid, okay, I'm going back hundreds of years. When I was a kid, how many books were there in a bookstore? Not a lot. Bookstores weren't big. Now you go into the bookstores, and there's just no end to them. Did you ever go in Geula? There's a top. You go in. That store in Geula, those two big giant bookstores in Geula. That's on the street. That's on the side of Meir Sharm Street. That direction from Kikar Shabbos. Each of those bookstores, they how do I say? They had a book. They had a regular storefront, and then they drilled in. They opened the back of the whole wall. They like took another apartment. They took a whole extra. They opened the building up to extend because there's more and more and more. So many bookstores, and now there's a whole section of kosher cookbooks. You know that? I haven't been in a Jewish bookstore in a long time. It's very dangerous for me to go to Jewish bookstores. Even though actually I have a delivery of a book right now. Okay. Somebody sent me a book. It's by my door now. I heard when I was teaching that he's here. He knocked on it. He left the door. He left the book. What is this with kosher Jewish cookbooks? How do you make it? What is that? People have Jewish kosher cookbooks. My mother had one cookbook that everybody had the same cookbook. And then the Chabad cookbook came out, and everybody had that. That was the cookbook. And now, a gazillion cookbooks. Why? Because we have a desire l'chadesh, just like Hashem is mechadesh, betuvo, b'chol yom tavim massive gracious. Every day Hashem renews the creation. So we also have to renew. And that's what we get from Kedoshim to you. And then right away, it says, the first mitzvah is fear your parents and keep Shabbos. 2 of the 10 commandments are in the beginning of Parsha Kedoshim, and we see that that's the hardest mitzvah. It's ben adam l'chavera, ben adam l'makom. Ish imo v'aviv tirah. Fearing your parents, in other words, respecting your parents, is ben adam l'chavera, and Shabbos is Hashem. And the whole parsha going back and forth between ben adam l'chavera, mitzvah between interacting between people and people, and mitzvah between us and Hashem. And that's what we have to do this week. Is a very powerful week of keeping halacha, of learning halacha, learning Jewish law, keeping Jewish law. That black man who claims to be a Jew, he has to learn what it means to be a righteous Gentile, and doesn't mean to harass people in the street. You're not allowed to harass people. So Bezrat Hashem, that's the energy of the weekend. We see that Hashem is anyway overpowering everything, meaning, and in the beginning it says, I'm with you even though you're tamei, right? The Mishkan is, the Shekhinah is present with you even when you're tamei. And Hashem is showing it now, that even when we're not worthy, but Hashem is bringing the Geula anyway. And the tzaddikim are fighting very, very hard. The tzaddikim are fighting very, very hard for the Geula to come. So Bezrat Hashem, we have to just get rid of the sinas chinam. It's so hard. We're so much competitive. There's so much competitiveness in by us. Somebody just sent me also a clip, also from Meaningful Minute, I think, or one of those Living L'chaim, one of those interesting, and it's talking about, there's a guy who's talking about how, and we don't have it so much in Eretz Yisrael, but he was saying how there's so much competition in America, and everybody has to look a certain way and go to a certain vacation. If you don't have a certain vacation, if you don't have this, if you don't have that, then your kids feel deprived, and then they feel poor, and then they feel bad about themselves. And okay, Baruch Hashem, we're rich, but we don't have to live in an ostentatious way, and we certainly don't have to put pressure on other people. Part of being sensitive to other people is not doing anything that's going to make another person feel the lacking in their own circumstance. I tell you this, I told this story many, many times, and I'll say it again many hundreds of times more. My grandmother, she should rest in peace, my mother's mother, they had a lot of kids in the family, and they had an next door, when they lived in Europe and in Romania, in Hungary, they had a next door neighbor, and she never didn't have any children. And she loved my grandmother. She used to come over and schmooze all the time. Whenever this lady would come to the door, my grandmother would shoo all the children out the back and say, go someplace, or play in the backyard, or play upstairs, or go be quiet. And because she didn't want the lady who doesn't have children to see my grandmother's children. And so my mother said, but she knows us. She knows there's a lot of kids in the family. My grandmother said, don't show her. Don't put it in her face that it's going to make her feel bad. It'll make her feel her lacking even more. Everybody go out and come back in an hour. And that's what they used to do whenever this neighbor would come. They would all run away to someplace else and play someplace else. So Bezrat Hashem, we should all be healthy and happy and strong and give Hashem nachas. Give the Netzach Yisrael, give the Menasayach, let the tzaddikim finally win and be successful in the battle of bringing the Geulah to the world. Have a great Shabbos. Thank you for coming so much. Thank you, Gitzi, for organizing everything. And
Thank you, amazing shir.
Bezrat Hashem.
I sent you a nice story from the Anuka that I just read on Kika Shabbos. Maybe you already read about it.
I knew about it already a long time ago, and it's shocking. And I was actually shocked that they publicized it. But,
the one with the baby?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the Pesach, yeah. I was a little bit surprised that they publicized it. A little bit. I don't like when they publicize so many miracles, and there are so many miracles, and I get nervous. But okay, that's not my. Nobody asked me. Nachon. You have to also protect tzaddikim and whatever. But yeah, there's lots of nisim happening every day. There's lots of nisim. Okay, bye everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And bye everybody on YouTube.